Hey everyone, welcome to our, and I'm so sorry, I'm going to be a little bit distracted because people keep joining, but I want to welcome you all to this really special talk with Dawn. Before I get started, I wanted to say that one of our, well, actually, you know what? I'll save it for the end. Let's just get into this because you're all here for this, and I'll save my little announcement for the end. So I am so thrilled to have Dawn with me. I met Dawn through the Animal Reiki for Reiki practitioners class, and I just found her, and then she took the level 3 class, and I just found Dawn to be just such an amazing woman, such a great teacher, and I'm so excited that she's going to be talking to us about flower essences today. So I just wanted to give you a little bit about her. She has dedicated her life to working with a wide variety of animals, large and small. She's an animal communicator, a Reiki master teacher. She is an Let Animals Lead animal Reiki teacher. She's a shamanic practitioner, a SARA practitioner, and she has over 20 years experience in intuitive work with animals. She shares her life with a variety of animals, but most notably hedgehogs and horses. He's the author of The Hedgehog and Owner's Guide to a Happy, Healthy Pet and numerous articles on small pets in the upcoming book, Healing in Tandem, 10-minute techniques for healing animals and their people. I can't wait for that. And then Dawn has trained veterinarians in hedgehog care, developed an agility program for hedgehogs. As you can see, those are her love. And she serves as a judge for the International Hedgehog Association. Her work also spans rabbits, guinea pigs, snakes, elephants, and more, making her knowledge incredibly diverse. And so she is also offering a once a month Zoom call, healing call, and we'll put a link for that in the recap for all of you. It's called Meditate with Your Pet, and it's free. So another great resource for everyone. And I just want to take a moment to welcome Rosemary and Lisa. Kathy F is here, and Sherman. And Anna, I think I said hey to Anna, and Lauren, welcome to all of you. So we are going to turn it over to Dawn now to hear all about flower essences. Oh, and really quickly,
Okay.
sorry, Dawn, I should have said that. I just saw Kathy F use the chat. And if you have any questions when Dawn is speaking, just please throw them into the chat. I know I have a question from Nancy already, and we have a question from Wilma. So if there's any questions that come up during her talk, just throw them in the chat and I'll grab them and we will go through them at the end of the call. So thank you.
Great. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. Let's see if, there we go. Okay. So we titled this Unlocking the Healing Power of Flower Essences for Both Animals and People. And I want to talk first briefly about what an essence is. So a flower essence is a really subtle liquid extract, generally taken orally, that is used to address mind-body issues, emotional issues. It can also be used for spiritual issues. And they're very subtle. And flowers have been part of human healing for probably forever. But the idea of using flower essences like this in modern times was really codified by English physician Dr. Edward Bach or Beisch, depending on where you're from, how it's pronounced. But he codified it in the 1930s, working with 38 specific flowers. And a lot of practitioners use those 38. I use a lot beyond the 38 and a lot of blends. And most of the products I use are actually created in the US from plants here. There's even a specialty company in Arizona that makes their essences from cactus flowers. So you can get very specific to your area. And prior to my animal work, I was or even during it, I was a cultural geographer. And there's an idea in that sense, in that discipline, that everything we need to heal ourselves, to eat healthfully, is within 50 miles of where we live. We can find anything we need. And so I like the idea of using flowers that are growable, grown native to this continent. So you'll find that if you look at a lot of the things I'm using, they're produced in the US from plants here. The original Bach essences were produced from plants in his garden. So How are these created? They're created usually by steeping uh, wildflowers or blooms at the peak of their flowers at the peak of their bloom in water, and then that is diluted and processed or potentized and preserved. Typically, the preservative was brandy, but now you can find many essences that are preserved with glycerin if you don't want to have something with alcohol. Or one of the lines I use is preserved with red shiso, which is a mint plant. It's a vinegar made from a mint plant. And a little bit about how these are used, just in general. Generally, they're taken orally. They're used to work on mind-body issues, emotional issues, spiritual issues, but it's a little hard to describe how they work, so I want to relate them to the idea of healing with music. So the action of flower essences can be compared to the effects that we experience from hearing a particularly moving piece of music. That music can change our breathing, it can change our heart rate, it can change our mood, yet there's no physical interaction with the music. It's all vibrational. And that, in essence, is how flower essences work. They're vibrational in character. So they work much like music or viewing a piece of artwork that has meaning for us, or a hologram, if you want to think about a hologram. And so that is the essence of how they work or how we would use them. It's vibrational in nature. And the three sources for the ones I'm going to talk about today: greenhopeessences.com up in New England, FES Flowers in California, and then rescueremedy.com, because those are the original Bach essences and the company that produces those. So how do we give flower essences? We give flower essences, they can go in the mouth, and typically it was oral administration. But for animals or people, they can go on the skin, like on your pulse points. They can go in drinking water. So when I set up my water bottle for the day, the essences I'm working for at that time go in my water bottle, and I get a little bit every time I sip. For an animal, they can also go on food or a treat. If you have reptiles or birds, you can make up a misting bottle with water and the essence and mist the area around them. They can also be added to massage oils or creams. And they're often given to both the animal and the human, because we really heal in tandem. If we're talking about our own animals, we really heal in tandem with them. And often we need some of what our animal is getting. So if we pet it onto our animal, for example, the bit that we absorb through our palm is going to benefit us. But nothing in here harms us, because if you're giving a flower essence or essence blend, your body is going to take what it needs and ignore the rest of it. So I have to say I've had one bad reaction in over 20 years of using essences. And the only bad reaction I had was an animal that turned out to be allergic to mint. And he was not allergic to the essence, but he reacted to the preservative in it, because the particular one I had selected for him was preserved with red shiso, which is a mint. And I have used these literally with thousands of companion animals, zoo animals, wild animals, and only had the one reaction. So I want to stress how safe these are in comparison, in particular, to essential oils. A lot of people can confuse flower essences and oils. And oils can be very dangerous if you aren't careful, especially if you have cats or birds. And so the flower essences are much safer. And one of the reasons my vet started me using those, because I was working so much with hedgehogs, is that these are very, very safe. In terms of timing, because I wanted to cover some of the general issues before I get into specific protocols. I usually give them 3 times a day where possible, or at least twice. For an ongoing issue, I will use a blend for 3 to 4 weeks and then reevaluate. And I do adjust my own personal essences daily because I have a lot of them, and I'll adjust for whatever I'm working on for my own self. And you could do that with your animals. I generally, though, if I'm working with, like I said, with an animal, whether it's one of mine or a client or one of the rescues where I volunteer, I will work with, in essence, for about 3 to 4 weeks and then reevaluate to see where the animal's at and what they need. All of this started for me with learning a rescue remedy protocol for anxious animals and people from my chiropractic vet. And Dr. Dan had a protocol. And the reason he gave this to me is my filly had a hip injury and was just super reactive for the chiropractic sessions. And when she would go ballistic, I would get nervous and upset. The second session, she actually bit my arm, and he's like, okay, time for the rescue remedy. And I've used this ever since. It's 3 doses of rescue. It's like 3 doses of rescue remedy or the equivalent. So lots of companies make equivalents, and they'll call them like 5-flower formula, because rescue remedy has 5 different flowers in it. You might also find like animal rescue formula, animal emergency formula, depending on the company. They all work similarly, either the same flowers, but a different company. Rescue Remedy is a trademark. So we start that 2 days before an appointment for both the animal and their person. It's 3 doses of that, 2 days before, 3 doses 1 day before, and on the day of the appointment, a dose in the morning, a dose 30 minutes before you leave home for your vet visit or grooming visit or whatever it might be, 1 dose, or 1 dose when you leave. And if I usually add another dose when the vet arrives at my barn, if it's my horse that's being worked on, or another dose right when I arrive at the vet, because often we might have a 20 or 25-minute wait depending on how their timing is going that particular day. And I found this very helpful. It calms both the animal and the person. And so I'm happy to send this PowerPoint to Leah so she can distribute it with the replay so that you have that information. But this was my first protocol I learned. Dan also taught me a lot about oils and other things, but he got me started with the flower essences. And then one of my exotic animal veterinarians, because I had hedgehogs at the time, got me started using them with hedgehogs, and just I love them and have been using them ever since. But this is like if you only have one protocol, this is a great one. Rescue Remedy is widely available. I found it in Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, some Whole Food stores or other grocery stores. So it's readily available. And it's really effective for helping with that appointment anxiety, or the things that make our animals anxious, vets and groomers. And Leah, if someone has a pertinent question and you want to stop me before I go on, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll take questions at the end. So first, I want to talk about rescue and taking care, because I work a lot directly with rescues and with people who run rescues, have adopted rescue animals, and there's some things that we encounter quite a bit in that particular environment. And of course, this is Shelter Animal Reiki Association. So we're dealing with shelter animals, rescue animals. The first of those are issues of abandonment and abuse. And these can be separate or they can be together. So animals might feel abandonment for a variety of reasons. They might have been abandoned, given up, dumped, whatever, but they can also feel abandoned if their person dies and there's no one to take them in and they end up in a shelter. They can also feel abandoned for that reason, and they may not have abuse associated with it, but they have grief associated with that loss. So when I'm dealing with issues of abandonment and abuse, I usually use one of 2 protocols. I either use abandonment and abuse and grief and loss from Green Hope, or I use post-trauma stabilizer and grief relief from Flower Essence Services. Um, the first pairing there come as drops. The second pairing can be ordered as drops, but usually comes as a spray. And some people find it much easier to use the spray, even if you're spraying it on your hand to pet it on the animal, but they might find it easier to use the spray. And I go through so much post-trauma stabilizer. I'm never without it in my kit bag. I generally order it by the case of 12. So that if I could only have one essence, that would be my go-to because it's been so important. It's also helpful for us if we've gone through any kind of a trauma, if we have recurring nightmares, very helpful for people as well. For animals coming into a shelter situation that are likely to be euthanized due to illness or age, there's a really nice blend called Transition. It doesn't change the timing, but it helps with those kind of the end of life period. And the other combination that's helpful for both the animal and for the person working with them are the hospice formulas from FES, Peaceful Passage, and then for the caregiver, Compassionate Caregiver. Or you can use Transition for the animal, the Compassionate Caregiver for the person. Very good formulas. And these are blends of multiple flowers, just like Rescue Remedy. For communication between staff, volunteers, and animals, and good boundaries, my personal go-to is a single essence, the Dog Rose. And while the description of it lists it as being for communication between dogs or canines and people, I found that it's really helpful with any kind of animal. When I teach animal communication, I offer it to my students if they want to try it. Another good formula along similar lines, which is a blend, is Sacred Heart. For helping animals into their next step, New Beginnings. And so if I were doing a blend for someone or suggesting a blend for someone running a shelter, I might recommend a blend that includes New Beginnings, Abandonment and Abuse, and Grief and Loss, because those are from the same company, so the preservative is the same. And New Beginnings is also, you'll find when I get to issues, it's also what I use when I add new animal or person to the household or for a move, anything like that. It's a really good blend for helping animals on their next step. And then there's the big issue of helping staff and volunteers cope. And I kept changing the order here, but I put super glue first. So ethereal fluidium super glue is when you're tired and burnt out. And how many of us working with shelter animals have not had periods where we feel tired and burnt out? And this literally is an emotional super glue to help you keep it together. Also helpful, grief relief or grief and loss, things like Magenta Self Healer or Grace formulas, Peaceful Passage and Compassionate Caregiver, which are hospice formulas I mentioned earlier. And then from Green Hope, they have a very nice healer's toolbox. If you're an empath, as many of us are, there are a lot of good formulas in there for helping you deal with the issues of keeping yourself separate from those you work on, protecting your boundaries, helping you heal to be able to heal others. And then from FES, I use the Flourish formulas. So in my personal toolkit, I have the Animal Wellness line from Green Hope, the Flourish formulas line from FES, the Healer's Toolbox from Green Hope, and then groups of other essences. I have a few from Desert Alchemy, which I said works with the cactus flowers. I have a few from other places. But I really, over the years, I've tried a lot of things, and I really like these particular ones for my personal practice.
Hey, Dawn, just really quickly, since we're here and it's a pertinent question. Carolyn Firth had two questions. One is, you said that you gave dog Rose to animal communication students. What does that do for them?
It helps them open up because one of our issues as humans is being able to listen. We're really good at telling animals things. We're not good at listening to animals, and it helps them be more open and open up to being able to hear the animals.
Okay. And then the other one, thank you. And the other one was, does transition or peaceful passage help animals who are going through a natural transition process?
Yes, it does. So, for instance, if I have an older, I'm thinking hedgehog. My last hedgehog passed suddenly, so I didn't use it. But if I have a hedgehog who is elderly, I might be using senior citizen with them. But then when I see the signs and they're giving me the signs that they're getting closer, I'll use transition to help ease the process, even if it's a death due to natural things or natural aging.
Nice. Thank you.
It does not change the speed, but it's to help the emotional issues around the process of dying and to give the animal strength for a good death.
Thank you.
Anything else? I saw there's some things in the chat, but I'm not seeing the chat. So
No,
anything
no,
else
no.
right now?
That's it for right now.
Okay.
I have some for later.
Okay. Oops. And I just wanted to touch here briefly on wild animals. So this is easiest when you're providing like water for wild birds or animals because the essences can be added to the water. Timely virus mix was not designed as an animal essence, but I felt intuitively to use it to add to bird water to combat bird flu. And so timely virus mix was actually done for COVID-19 for people, for COVID. But in my area, a lot of the communities were banning bird feeders because of bird flu in the last couple of years. And so I felt directed to add this to the water in my bird waterer. So that's an example of how I might provide support for wild animals. And you can use drops or sprays on food if you're putting food out for birds or other wild animals. Some other things I've used have been self-heal or magenta self-healer. If I have something coming to a feeder that's obviously has some injuries, even though I might offer Reiki, I also do additional things to support. I might put out painkiller plant, those drops, or run and play. Run and play is for orthopedic issues. Things like sprains, dislocations, broken bones, those kinds of issues. And then again, the timely virus mix. So you can use it with wild animals. It's just harder because you don't have the direct contact with them, but it's not impossible to do some support. And I think for me, the primary one that I've done is a virus mix, whatever the current virus mix is from Green Hope. I've used that from time to time with bird water. Now, all of our companion animal issues, and this is just a smattering, but talking about some different ways that you, in addition to Reiki, that you can support them. New people in the home, whether that's an adult because we marry, or a baby because we have a child, or a parent moving in with us for care. It can be a new animal in the home. Related issues are a move or the loss of a person in the home. And a loss doesn't mean a death. It can also be an animal's primary person is a teenager who leaves to go away to college and is only home for occasional weekends or summer. That animal can experience a loss from that. So some of my go-tos for these particular issues are new beginnings, and I always have that around. I always use it for everybody in the household when there's a new animal or a change in the people in the household. I used a lot of it when I had to move. Um, my prior home I was really attached to, and we had to move because it was going to be bulldozed for an airport, and that was a really trauma for me. So I used a lot of it for myself. Arbor Garden, which is one of those, a blend that you can give all the time just to keep a household peaceful. It's really easy if your animals share drinking water to put a couple drops in there every time you refill the bowl, and it helps with a peaceful household. A grief formula, if there's been a loss of a person or something like a move. Sometimes you might need a formula like jealousy, uh, when a new animal comes in, or person, or neediness. Pack leader for the person in the family who is the boss. And this is particularly important if you have an animal that wants to be the leader of the pack and you need to be the leader of the pack. You want to make sure you use it, but you can use it with an animal if you want an animal. Say you have an animal that you currently have and you're adding another animal to your household, you might offer pack leader to the senior animal as a way of helping them take on a leadership role with the newcomer to help them mentor or help the newcomer adjust. And then I mentioned golden armor in here. That's another one that can be given all the time if you want. If you have animals that are sensitive to all the electricity and all the electrical things in our environment, the Wi-Fi, computers, our cell phones, all of that stuff. Some animals are very sensitive. Some people are very sensitive. Golden armor is my go-to for modern electronic issues. And I almost always put that in my drinking water for me as well. The next category I want to talk about surgery and illnesses. In here, I want to talk about a couple of things in particular: self-heal and painkiller. So often a plant name gives you some ideas about what it's good for. Like dog rose is good for communicating with canines. Self-heal is good for self-healing. Self-heal is an individual formula. Magenta self-healer is a blend that adds some additional things in with self-heal to help it be a stronger, maybe a stronger essence, if you want to look at it that way. It adds in some complementary essences. Painkiller plant is a plant. The essence made from its flowers is used for pain relief. So these are some things. And the one thing my vet mentioned when he began teaching me about essences is that the essences do not interact with herbal or prescription medications. So if your animal is also on a prescription drug or pain medication, these aren't going to interfere with the other things or interact with the other things you're using because they're vibrational in nature. If you have an animal that's had an orthopedic injury, arthritis, broken bone, muscle pull, dislocation, hip dysplasia, run and play is not only designed to assist with the physical recovery, but also the emotional recovery to bring back their attitude to, so there are plants in there to support mood or attitude to give them the desire to run and play again. Recovery is a blend for recovering from illness, injury, trauma. Immune support can be used for, like now, immune support is going back into my own water because we've had a lot of COVID in the area and I've been at a lot of public events. So I've been using the virus mix plus immune support in my drinking water. Just to help my system and hopefully helping to prevent me from getting COVID or any of the other things that are going around right now. Digestive woes, very good for any kind of digestive issue. Flow free is another one of those that I would not be without. Flow free is for flow of any kind of system. It helps with blockages. Those blockages could be things like kidney stones or bladder stones. It could be emotional blockages in a person or animal, but it helps with flow. And then the other one on my list, kind of my surgery illness group, would be outburst. And while outburst is also used for aggressive outbursts, outburst is also for any kind of body outburst, like a rash or a skin outbreak, a hot spot, because those are outbursts of our physical system. And you can use outburst as a supportive essence for those issues. Another big category, anxiety and fear. So lots of flower essence companies, including those that a lot of pet stores carry, have anxiety or tranquility blends. These are often recommended for dogs that have thunderstorm anxiety. They may or may not be helpful. Thunderstorm anxiety has 3 components. It can have a component of the noise from a thunderstorm. It can have a component from the change in the barometric pressure, or it can have a component from the static from the electricity in a storm. And an animal might experience 1, 2, or 3 of those pieces of it. So anxiety may or may not help. Unfortunately, thunderstorm anxiety is one of those things that is trial and error. But I will try, in addition to thunder shirts or other things I'm doing, I will begin with anxiety or a similar formula. Separation is specifically for separation anxiety. And we're seeing a lot of that in animals right now because so many people adopted during the early days of COVID-19, when they were working from home or not working. When they had to go back to the office, all of a sudden animals that are used to you being with them 24/7 aren't seeing you for 8 or 10 hours a day. Lots of separation anxiety. There's a specific blend that deals with separation. Feverfew is a single essence from a single plant, and I've used that also besides an essence in herbal form. It was a favorite of one of my mentors, and it helps ramp up anything else you're doing. So if you have some blocks to healing in a particular area, I find that feverfew is good for ramping up the healing of any other essence or essence blend to help you through a particular block. Golden armor, which I mentioned before, for electrical disturbances. If the anxiety is thunderstorm anxiety and a component of that is the electrical energy in the storm, golden armor can be very helpful there. And when you get into more fear issues, they come from a little different place in terms of the blend and what they address, but Show Cats from Green Hope or Fearless from FES are excellent formulas. Until 2 years ago, I still taught college geography. I used to offer Show Cats or Fearless, usually Show Cats, because it got a bigger reaction from my students in terms of scoffing at it. But I used Show Cats for students that were afraid of public speaking. And I would offer them that as a confidence builder. And some of them would joke because they thought it was so hysterical that they would take a cat product. But it does help with issues like anxiety about public speaking. So those are 2 of my go-tos for more confidence issues, to help an animal with confidence. Show Cats if it's just being confident. Fearless if it's a really fearful animal where I'm seeing more where it's not so much a confidence issue but a fear issue, then I will tend to reach for the Fearless for that. Those are some of my go-tos for those particular categories. For aggressive outburst, which I mentioned prior to this in terms of skin outbursts, but outbursts, this, for example, would be the dog that has aggressive outbursts when you encounter other dogs on a walk. I would use outburst, or I might use kindergarten. which is about balanced, uh, bringing yourself into balance. It's a gentle formula designed for children, but it is also helpful for animals finding balance within themselves so that they don't need to have explosive outbursts. Um, Marking in the house, eliminating outside of the litter box, common issues. There is a specific essence for that called spraying, and that's appropriate for some animals. For others, it might be that there's a neediness there. And with elimination issues, as a communicator, I always rule out the physical issue first. I always ask a person, have you taken your cat or dog to the vet to make sure there's not a physical issue? Because often they will be marking in the house or not using a litter box to bring attention to something physically going on with them. If physical issues have been ruled out and this is emotional, I'll start with spraying. I might add in neediness or golden armor as well, but spraying is my first go-to for elimination issues, which are a common complaint. And then I bring up performance issues because so many people do active events with their animals. If either of you, animal or person, is having trouble with focus, and I have a lot of friends and clients that do nose work, and the person has a hard time catching the dog's tail when they find a scent. So I will recommend something like lemon or spiderwort, individual essences for focus. And then for the communication between the two of them, I might recommend dog rose or sacred heart, just depending on the situation. If it is more a confidence issue or a fear issue on the part of the person or animal, and here I say person first, because often the animals are fine, but they're reacting to nervousness in their human. Here I would use fearless or show cats. So those are some issues that might come up in terms of performance. And then I just want to mention, I know we're getting close on time, so I just want to mention some of my other favorites. I use Senior Citizen for my senior animals. It helps with all of those things that start happening as they age to the best that it can. It helps with mood, movement, hearing, eyesight, scent, ability or nose, the ability of the nose to work, all those faculties that start to decline as an animal ages. I use Flea Free for both myself and my animals, and I actually use it more in myself because I found if I'm diligent about taking it, I don't know how many of you are mosquito magnets. I'm a mosquito magnet. I've already survived West Nile disease, which I thought was going to kill me. And so I have this thing about any, mosquitoes. If I'm diligent about flea free, I find that I get less mosquito bites than if I'm not taking it. Like when I'm out in my garden and that. So I use it for me probably more than I use it for my animals. Flow free is good for any blockage or flow issue, and whether it's emotional blockage or a physical blockage. Digestive woes for irpy stomachs, diarrhea, anything kind of queasy like that. Flora Sleep is one that I've used off and on for myself, but I started experimenting with it with animals about a year ago. And one of the interesting things I found is it's very helpful for a lot of the cats that wake people up at 3 or 4 in the morning. Very safe to use, but offering it to your cat before bedtime helps them sleep or let you sleep later. And that's an issue for a lot of people when the animals wake them up, especially out of a deep sleep before they're ready to be awake. So I've kind of experimented with that with some friends in the last year, and we've had some really interesting results. So I wanted to bring that one up. Super glue, back up here because super glue is my go-to for feelings of burnout, being overtired, feeling like you can't focus on your path. I just really like that particular blend. And borage is one of my all-time favorite plants for mood. I grow it in my garden. You can candy the lovely blue flowers to put on baked goods. They're just beautiful. You can eat the leaves or use them as a mulled leaf in your water. They have a cucumbery sort of taste to them. If you eat the leaves in your salad, you have to eat the young leaves because they get a little prickly as they get older. But it's just like one of my all-time favorite plants. And borage is used for depression and mood. It's used to lighten the mood and to eliminate depression. And I love the plant. I said I grow it. It does great with my, in a companion planting with my tomatoes. The flowers are lovely. The insects and hummers love them. They can, like I said, they can be candied. You can eat the leaves. The flower essence from it is just amazing for mood. So one of my absolute favorites. Essences can be blended. You can blend, of course, individual essences into a blend, or you can do blends into another blend. This requires some practice. When you start, you want to work on a single issue and not try to hit multiple issues in one blend. And you can look at this from a couple of standpoints. You can work on polarity, on things that maybe are opposites, or you can work on balance and tone to take a starting essence and then pick things like polarity would be working with something that's opposite it. Balance and tone would be working with similar things to balance and tone, the speed at which it works, or the exact body systems or emotional systems on which it works. And this takes practice and experience. FES offers classes. I know Desert Alchemy used to. I don't know if they still do. Green Hope doesn't, but there are people out there offering classes on this. I've learned mostly from working with one of my vets and from trial and error. And then Molly at Green Hope makes marvelous blends and has been, very, very helpful in helping me learn more. So generally when I order from them, I'll ask them to include one essence that I didn't order that they think that would be good for me to either learn about or that they think I might need at that time. And I've had some just very interesting experiences with that. So that's also a way to gradually expand what you know about, is when you order what you know you need, then to order something new just to experiment with it and learn how it works for you or the animals in your life. Because literally there are thousands of flowers out there and individual essences and blends available. Oops. And I just want to put up my contact info if anyone wants to get in touch with me. My website's dawnwrobel.com. You can email me at info@dawnwrobel.com. And that is my office cell phone on there. If you need some direction for resources or anything else. And I know we're coming close on time, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And happy to take any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dawn. This has been so informative. So many wonderful suggestions about humans. So this is great. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm taking lots of notes. And again, you will be providing the PowerPoint. So
I'm going to email you the PowerPoint.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll be providing that to everyone in the recap email. Really quickly, a quick question. Do you have listed in your PowerPoint the names of the companies that you recommend? I know Green Hope is one.
Yeah, the three links are in there for Green Hope, FES Flowers, and Rescue Remedy.
Perfect. Great. So the first question is from Nancy. If you are using or recommending flower essences in your professional practice, either animal Reiki or animal communication, how do you avoid crossing the line into prescribing something or practicing vet med without a license? I have occasionally mentioned Rescue Remedy to friends and clients with a clear check with your vet disclaimer, but would love to know your thoughts and practices.
Well, I always start, and my disclosure form starts with, I'm not a vet and I'm not allowed to do a make a medical diagnosis, perform surgery, etc. And so generally, if I'm working on, I used to worry about that more when I started. I don't worry about it as much anymore. And I think I stopped worrying so much when I started having vets refer people to me.
Mm,
And so I now have a number of veterinarians in addition to my own vet as clients. And I stopped worrying so much because you can go buy these over the counter. They're not prescription medication.
mm,
And because Dr. Dan, when he started teaching me about these, and then, the exotic animal practice that I used to use, um, they did help me learn more about them, and then I just started doing a lot of learning on my own. But from a perspective of use, he stressed that if you use an oil, you have to be really, really careful because you can kill an animal. But with the essences, they're very safe because they're vibrational in nature. And
mm.
so they're over the counter, they're vibrational in nature. And at this point, I'm just really comfortable because there's that idea that they don't interact with prescription medication, or at least that's what I've been taught.
Great. I love that. Thank you,
It
Nancy,
is an
for that
issue,
question.
it is an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So Carolyn had, in this kind of piggybacks on what you just said, can you explain how essences are vibrational, how they could be vibrational?
Because they take the vibrational energy of the plant.
Mhm.
So if you think about it, in my belief, everything has a vibration to it. And so some people use homeopathics. Homeopathics are also vibrational, and they take the vibrations of the substance they're made from.
Mhm.
But by vibration, I want to liken it back to music again. What gets us about music, what helps us change our breathing, our blood pressure, our mindset when we connect with something musically is we're connecting to the vibration of that music, something in the music. And so flowers have a vibration and they work much the same way. And for any of you who are gardeners, I encourage you, go out there and sit with a plant in your garden. Just get quiet for a moment. Um, Touch it if you and the plant are comfortable doing that, or do it with a tree, and let the song of that plant come through you and sing the song of the plant.
I love that. Thank you.
It's just a wonderful deep connection, and that also gets you into more of an understanding of how things vibrate.
Ah, I love that suggestion. What really curiously, Mary Lynn wants to know, what is the shelf life of the essences?
It's going to depend on the preservative, and it also depends on the care, because if they come in a dropper bottle and you contaminate the dropper,
Mm.
you can spoil the essence.
Oh,
And so I generally, with a glass dropper, I'm not going to use the glass dropper in an animal's mouth. I might use a glass dropper to drop it into their water or on their food or a treat, or into my hand to pet it onto them. But I'm not going to put a glass dropper near an animal's mouth. If I
mm.
have a product that's a spray, it's a little different. The alcohol preserved products, generally, if you get one that's just been newly produced, it's going to have a 10-year expiration on it. But the Green Hope products, I generally find, if you take care not to contaminate the dropper, I'm going to say probably a year. And they are, well, their bottles come in two sizes. So Green Hope does half ounce or 2 ounce, and I use 2 ounce on the things I use a lot of, half ounce on anything that I only use once in a while, because I the shelf life tends to be shorter with the red shizo. But if you don't want to give alcohol to your animal, it's a plant vinegar as a preservative. Rescue Remedy you can get with glycerin instead of alcohol, but most of the remedies from FES are the traditional preservative was brandy or some other form of alcohol, and so those will go 10 years if you don't contaminate your sprayer or stopper.
So Green Hope is using a different kind of a carrier
They
then?
use their preservative is a vinegar made
And
from
so it's
red
only a
shiso.
year.
Right. And um, I have some bottles that still feel really strong that are older than a year. And I'll just judge if I feel that there are, if it feels okay when I go to use it, I'll still use it as long as there's no contamination in it. If I see that I'm starting to get something growing in the bottle, for example, I'll toss it. I'm not going to use
So,
it.
so just rule of thumb would be a year with the
It's rule
green
of thumb. But I'm
products.
going to say about a year with the Green Hope, a year maybe a little more with Green Hope, and I use up my FES, most of my FES faster than that. But if I look at those come with an expiration date on the bottle,
Hmm.
and if it's a new batch, it's going to be like 9, 10 years out into the future. But
Okay,
they're plastic sealed with an alcohol preservative. It's more of like so the bottle is sealed better because it has a plastic seal over it in addition to the um, top and a different preservative.
perfect. Thank you. And then Alice wanted to know, do animals have a choice? Um, for example, a separate bowl of water.
Yes. And the other thing, if I'm working with an animal in person, I might offer an essence on one hand and an essence on the other hand, and see what they select. Um, and many people have commented that if I mail something to them, that when they took it out, their cat or dog knew immediately what was for them and wanted it. And then when they don't need it anymore, they'll refuse to take it. But yes, I would offer an option because like my hedgehogs are like cats. They're super picky, and with my hedgehogs, I might elect to just put a drop on their back and let it absorb through the skin, because if I put it in the water, they may not touch it. Even that little tiny bit, of one drop in 4 ounces, they might not touch. So yes, I would always offer a second water bowl. I also don't put it in if it's a filtered, like one of the filtered water where it goes through the fountains where there's a
Right.
filter. If it's not filtered, but I don't know what impact the filter has on it, so I wouldn't use it in a fountain, for example.
Oh,
But
that's good.
I would offer a choice, and uh, a lot of animals that recognize it's helping them will actually sit there and look for their essence. Am I going to get my essence?
Hmm. I see. Okay. And then just really quickly, Joan wanted to know, could the flea free deter ticks?
Um, I'm going to tell you, I think it can help, but it's not enough. And
Yeah.
here it's just not enough. I found personally helpful for, sand fleas, mosquitoes, but it's not enough. This was a bad year for ticks. They started like in February or March here this year, which is unusual. I'm in the Midwest, and but it was a mild winter, and I had friends pulling them off horses the first week of March, and they're pulling new ticks off of horses. So I don't think it's enough. I
Okay.
personally, I haven't found anything that's enough on ticks,
Okay. They're
unfortunately.
pretty hardy. So,
Oh, and I saw someone asked about effects, and sometimes you see them immediately, like show cats. If you're taking it for help with something like public speaking in print people, you can get pretty immediate effects. Others, it might take 2, 3 weeks to build up in the system. And so that's why if I'm working with an animal, I'll work with a blend or an essence for about 3 weeks and then reevaluate. I might either stop it or I might do some testing. And so um, you can look up and find things. So uh, like FES has a one-page chart for using the Bach
mm,
flowers with animals and what they're good for. There are 10 pages if you go out to the Green Hope site for animals, and almost 200 pages for people. And you look for what the issue is, what the topic is. And then, for example, agility training, it generally lists run and play. But if it's for right relationship clarity that the person is in charge, you'd use neediness. If it's for help to be clear about the directions, neediness or spiderwort, or focus, lemon, or to support the trainer, it would be pack leader. So they'll have a topic and then they'll have like finer points within the topic and what you might use for both animals and people. And I said there's 10 pages just for animals for their animal wellness line. And I think there's like 175 pages for humans.
Okay, well, I have a
If I
couple.
can't find,
Go ahead.
yeah, okay.
So I have a
No, I was
couple
gonna say
more
if I don't
questions.
find something in there, I'll look at the human list for the issue I'm looking for.
Perfect. That's such a great resource. So before we get to Nancy's question over here, I just have a couple more questions that were sent in earlier. So Anne wanted to know, can you utilize the essences for wild animals on ourselves and share that way if direct contact is not possible?
Yes, we could. You can use it to modify your own energy or vibration. And so, if I have, say, I'm working at with a shelter where they're not willing to offer anything, even if I donate it to the animals, I can still use it. I can use it on myself and ask that that energy go out to the animal I'm working, that I'm going to be working with, or the animals I'm going to be working with.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Just like you could play music for them, you can play you can use the vibration through you of the essence.
Perfect. Thank you. And then Wilma wanted to know, can she use the healing power of flower essences in her grooming practice? And if so, how does she go about adding that?
Yes, and I would say for Wilma, I would say to start with yourself and to look at what you might do to assist your energy as you work with the animals. And then if you have permission, you can, to use them with the animals, then you can extend it to using it directly with an animal. But I'd start with yourself, because if we modify our vibration or energy to help the animals, that's a starting point. And we always have permission to work on ourselves.
I love that. That's just like the let animals lead, right? So that's
Mhm.
perfect. Thank you. And then one question I saved toward the end because it's going to probably take a little more time is, can you explain, this is from Charisse, can you explain a little bit more about the difference between essential oils and flower essences?
Yes. So an essential oil is an oil, an oily substance that's made from generally the leaves or stem of the plant. And that's where the oils would be contained. They might be steam distilled, it might be pressure to get those out. There are lots of different ways to extract the oil, but it's an oily substance that comes from the leaves and stem of the plant, not as often from a flower. And so the issue with the oils is you have a lot it's more of a chemical composition. Think like olive oil, avocado oil, flax oil. It's more of an oily substance with particular chemical makeup, and the flower essences are more vibrational in nature. They contain very little of the actual plant material, but they contain the vibration of the flower of the plant. And so well, many animals have sensitivity to oils, and you really need, if you're going to work with oils, I recommend getting the veterinary desk reference that's out there for them, because you don't want to do something that's going to kill your bird or your cat. And the other issue my vet has, this is coming from my vet, if people start using oils, they tend to use it in the amounts they would use on themselves. And an animal's nose is much more sensitive, and you can overload an animal very quickly and make them extremely uncomfortable if they cannot get away from the oil. So if you put it on their body, on their collar, they can't get away from it, it can literally make them crazy because they can't get away from that smell.
Oh, That would be really scary. Speaking
You
of,
have to be very careful. You have to be much. I'm not saying oils aren't effective. There's a
Mhm.
huge protocol for using oils effectively with animals, but it's not as safe as essences. And so I would never recommend oils to someone who didn't have aromatherapy training
Oh, okay, that's really
in my
good to know.
practice. I just don't. If they've
Yeah.
had aromatherapy training, I can talk to them about what they what they could try. And I always recommend the desk reference, which I don't have handy, but I have a there's a good veterinary desk reference out there for oils. But the average person that I'm working with, no clue on how to use them. Very little clue for how to use them for themselves, much less with an animal whose nose is 250 times more sensitive.
It sounds like flower essences are just a much safer choice for all
They're
of us
safer.
to use instead of like trying
Right.
to do trial and error with the oils, which could be really dangerous. So thank you for that. And then really quickly, what I think this is Nancy was just saying, she used a drop or two of Rescue Remedy on the inside of her dog's ear for storms, fireworks, etc. She liked the people version better than the pet version because the glycerin was kind of oily, sticky. It did seem to
Mhm.
help along with other techniques for giving her
I
like
agree. And
victim.
I prefer the alcohol preservative myself or the red Chizo because I don't like the oily residue.
Mhm.
It tends, especially if you're putting on the ear, it just collects more dust if you're trying to keep floppy ears clean. And it's a yeah. So I do prefer the human version, and I have not had any trouble even with my hedgehogs, which are tiny and very sensitive, with the alcohol preserved forms with them.
Great, perfect. And so we have time for one more question. Mary Lynn, you have your hand up. Oh, wait. Anne said, so Anne, okay, that'll be the last question, no, Anne, and then we'll have to wrap up because we are running past time. So Mary Lynn, go
Yeah,
ahead.
real
Yeah.
quick. Long distance animal Reiki, the animal or even the person is not in my room, but in another state. Would the flower essences be effective?
My experiences has been yes, but not as effective as being able to directly administer it. So if
Okay.
you're using it at your end, there's going to be an impact. But the difference is it's twofold. It's not that it's not impactful during your session, but if the person at the other end of your session is offering it to the animal 2 or 3 times a day, that's much more effective than a periodic session with you. It will help, but it may take longer or it may be more subtle.
Okay. Thank you.
And then lastly, is the frequency, this is from Anne, is the frequency of the flower essences the same as the electronic sensors that are attached to plants and flowers?
And then I have to say, I don't know.
Okay.
I
All
don't
right,
know the
very
answer
good.
to that.
That's always best to say, right? Well, thank you so much, Dawn. This has been so incredibly informative. We're so grateful to you for taking the time out and for preparing such an informative and insightful presentation. It's just been really wonderful. And I want to welcome all of you who haven't been here before. Thank you so much for coming and for supporting us and for supporting Dawn. And again, Dawn has a free Wednesday Zoom meditation call. And when is the next one coming up, Dawn?
Actually, tonight, and the one tonight is on creating healthy boundaries. So if you're interested, if you grabbed my phone number, I didn't grab the link to put it in chat, but if you, I can put my email in there
Yeah, could you put your
again.
email and that way they can email you
Yeah, if you
for
I
anything.
can send it back to you, and it is at 7:30 Central Time.
7:30 Central, so that would be 5:30 Pacific and um 8:30 Eastern. I just have to stop and think. So thank you so much for that, Dawn. I really appreciate that. Really appreciate you being here. I cannot thank you enough. And thank you for putting your email there. So for those of you, if you want to Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you so much. So many nice comments for you, Dawn. And again, get Dawn's email out of chat if you want to join her call tonight, her free meditation. It's just another great free resource for us to keep our practice and for us to support animals. And I love that. And so thank you so much, Dawn. And then really quickly, I was talking to, and I just want to get my name. I was talking to one of our community members, one of our SARA members, about, oh my gosh, about supporting Monica Hudin, who is from Croatia, supporting her shelter. And so this is from Eileen Queely. And Eileen's suggestion was once a month, we take time at a designated time to just send love and support to all the dogs in the Croatia rescue. And I'll get the name and I'll have this in our recap. But what I was thinking is that she suggested every Wednesday, first she suggested every month. And then I suggested, you know what, a month, sometimes people can forget. So let's do this every week because we're all supposed to be in our practice. This would only be a couple minutes a day, just you can do the all is well mantra. You are safe, you are loved, all is well, right? And we can send this to the animals in the shelter in Croatia where Monica is. I was thinking, we were like, what time would work for everyone? Well, no time is going to work for everyone across all these different time zones, right? So if we do it in the morning in on the West Coast, that might be afternoon for the East Coast. So my plan was if we all on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. for you, wherever you are, and you just take a moment and visualize the shelter, and I'll make sure to get a picture of the shelter and also a link to their Facebook page so you can go on there and see their animals. But if we can just take a couple minutes and say, you are safe, you are loved, all is well, and do that, at least 3 times and do it longer and just do some breaths and send that energy out to these dogs and let's see what happens. And if we do it every Wednesday, wherever you are at 7 a.m., just think about the constant wave of good feelings these dogs, this shelter is going to get as we all take just a few minutes every Wednesday at 7 a.m. So I will put more in the recap email, but I wanted to say this on the recording for those who are listening as well. Just something really cool that we could do. And if Monica starts to see a difference, she can report it back to us. And the differences would be maybe a dog that hasn't been adopted in a long time was recently adopted. And Monica, I know you're here, so I would just love for you to pop on for a moment because you have something super exciting to share with all of us that did happen at your shelter. And I really, truly believe it is because of all of the amazing, wonderful energy that we send to Monica and the dogs every time she comes and shares a story. So Monica, are you there? And hopefully she is.
I'm here. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'm so deeply touched and emotional, and this is such a great suggestion. I'm so grateful, and I think it will bring so much good things in our shelter. And like we talked about this story that I had recently, love is so powerful and it really does miracles. So thank you for the person who suggested it. I didn't catch the name, but thank you so much. It's I'm faking. It's really, 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 really beautiful. So I will try to make this story very short. It's I guess you all know about Heart, my soul dog from the shelter who died in June. So she had a dog friend that she loved so deeply. And the last few days that she was very ill, she was not eating. She was really very bad. But every day I took her out with him. And every time she blossomed when she saw him. And this is a dog that is 10 years old. He came to the shelter 4 years ago from the owners who went to the home for older people. And for 3 years, he was untouchable. He was so stressed in the shelter, and all the change that happened in his life was just too much for him. And first miracle is that around time that I took Leah's course, he started to open up with me, and I could slowly touch him, and he came to me. And it was the same time that I started to work with heart. They didn't know each other, they didn't see each other. But in the meantime, his girlfriend got adopted, and I decided to try to put them together. So they became very good friends, and they helped each other to open up. And the best part of this story is that he was adopted 2 weeks ago. So after 4 years in the shelter, at the age of 10, he went home to a great family that already had one of our seniors who died a few years ago. And he's now a totally different dog. He's totally relaxed. He's friendly, open-minded. He loves his family. And they're so happy about him. And they're so happy with him. And I know heart is smiling from eternity. I'm really touched because really few miracles happened in this story, and it all happened in a year, I would say. So yeah, love is very powerful. And yeah, I'm shaking while I'm talking, and I'm very emotional because these two dogs meant so much to me. And yeah, thank you for the time I could share that story.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sharing that, Monica, because for me, it just shows the power of what we do and how we're one person, but one person can have an effect. And so you had an effect on Heart, who then had an effect on this dog, this other dog. And now, you know, after Heart passed away, this other dog got adopted, even though it might have been really sad that he was all alone. He lost he lost his girlfriend, then he lost Heart. But instead, you know, because of the love and support that you give, and I know you inspire the other shelter workers too, that miracles can happen, which is why I'm so excited for us as a community to come together every 7 a.m., wherever you are, and to send love and just positive energy and light to the shelter. And what's the shelter's name? Because I don't want to butcher it, Monica.
It is Prieteli in Croatian. It means friends. And I will write the name of our Facebook page here in the chat.
Okay, great.
So you can check if someone wants to
check it out. So thank you all so much. You can see, you can feel, thank you so much, Monica. I'm so glad you shared that story because it's such a great way to end this call. And we had a great talk by Dawn, and now we have this great story by Monica. And I wanted Monica to come on because, you know, she is the reason that we're going to be offering and it's just a few minutes. You don't have to do a long meditation at 7 a.m. on Wednesdays. Just saying the all is well, just picturing the shelter and saying at least 3 times the all is well, which is, you know, you are safe, you are loved, all is well, just 3 times. And just that, keeping that in your practice, because not only are we then opening up our hearts and our energy to this beautiful shelter where Monica works, but we're also reminding ourselves why this practice is so important and how easy this practice is. So you don't even have to be a Reiki practitioner to do this. All you're going to do is say the mantra and just send love, just feel love deeply in your heart. And you will be so amazed at not only how good it makes you feel when you're doing it, but how it starts to affect your day. And I cannot wait for us to get some reports in a couple of weeks So we'll start this coming Wednesday. And again, I will put this in our weekly newsletter. I'll put it in the recap. But thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all, Monica and Dawn. Thank you so much. Dawn.
Thank you, Leah. And thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you so much, Monica. We are just so happy. And then also thanking Dawn. What an incredible presentation. So generous. And I'm so grateful to all the speakers that come to these calls and share their knowledge, and so that we can all grow and help support animals. And I just want to remind you, next week is Kristen from the Care Sanctuary in Florida, where Kathleen has taught since 2011, where I teach. And she's going to hopefully have a special friend, like one of her monkeys, come with her. But she's going to talk about the importance of Reiki with wild animals. So I hope you all can come and join us. And then it's not even just wild animals in captivity, but also other wild animals. So thank you all so much. Mwah. Love you all. Thank you for being on the call. And yes, Charisse, I can stay on. That's fine for just a couple minutes. So thank you all, everybody. Bye.